Okay, let's do a thought experiment again. I want you all to close your eyes. You're at Adepticon, or any other local convention that does miniature wargames. It's a beautiful space. There are minis everywhere for games you have never even heard of. Meanwhile, you're wondering what you should buy next. You already bought your 5th Baneblade and the GW representative asked you to leave, so what else could there be? Then you get blindsided by a booth you have never seen before for a game you have never really heard of, and it has a lot of miniatures for both fantasy and sci-fi factions, but the thing that catches your attention is just the weird mix of cyberpunk, sci-fi, and anime aesthetics. You brush it aside, but go up as you see these things called tags, mess of robots that look kind of awesome, especially this one you bought on accident in a secondhand market a little bit earlier that just kind of spoke to you, called a blackjack for some faction called like Areola or something. You look it up and find that it isn't in fact an Areola, it's Ariadna. And it's not this unknown new game that somehow just bought a booth at the biggest tabletop convention in North America. It's not only new, but it has been around for over 20 years under the radar of most communities. So you look up the rules, excited to see how it plays, and it's the Stephen King of skirmish rules. You're intimidated, you're afraid, you don't even know if you could find someone to play it with. The room is spinning, but you know what? The blackjack is sitting there, all shiny and unpainted, because it is a pewter model. Yes, it is a gigantic, incredibly detailed pewter model. I don't know how they did it. It would want you to stick to it, insanity and all. This right here, this is your average day for someone who discovered the insane world of Corvus Belli's Infinity. Hello everyone, I'm Arthur, and I'm here to talk about a game that I have been stalling on for months. I'm not gonna lie, I've had this video conceptualized since Adepticon, and I've been working behind the scenes with the lovely people of Corvus Belli to get it out. They have been giving me demo miniatures I've been playing on my own, and also buying terrain from Warsenal. A lot of terrain. To give you an idea, I asked the lovely providers at Corvus Belli that if they were going to send me anything to start, anything physical. I love physical books and reading it, and I would love to see what they have possible, because I underestimated the amount of physical books they would have. Well, the finger on the monkey's paw curled, and they sent me a stack of books so damn dense in history, lore, and geopolitics that I have actually struggled to get a lot of it down. Hell, even now, I'm gonna get a lot of this wrong. Don't even get me started on the rules for the game, because I don't even know how the game plays fully yet. I am about like 10 games deep with a 20-game tutorial campaign that I'm doing with my friends. Also, like, I'm gonna be shouting out a lot of good YouTube channels that are good resources for Infinity, so shout out to Dice Gods Wargaming for making an amazing multi-hour-long series breaking down how to play Infinity. Yes, multiple hours. It takes that much for you to grasp the basic concepts. I mean, it's intuitive. It's a very intuitive system once you understand all the mechanics. There's just a lot. It's kind of like Battletech. Once you know your army, you can kind of just go through it, but then sometimes you'll interact with an army that has mechanics that you have never heard of in your entire life. I guarantee you, off rip, you won't know what the word mimetism means, because I couldn't even intuit what it meant to have a mimetism of -6, and then I started to play the game and I was like, oh, mimetism -6 can go eat my bunghole, because I don't really have any multispectral visors, but the only people who understood what I just said are people who play the game, but whatever. I literally could not have done it without Dice Gods Wargaming, so go follow them, please, if you want to learn how to play the game. Regardless, this is a lore channel. You guys are here for lore. The funny ha-has, and I know what you're thinking. You're looking at the screen and asking yourself, why? Oh god, why? There's so many fat anime titties in the art for these miniatures. And to that, I gotta say, that's nothing, man. Have you seen the thighs on the Asura for the new Mazebreaker 2-player set? Get a load of them fucking hams. We shall get into the lore of this game. The basics you need to know before getting into the game. I want to cover the various factions of the universe, as well as just cover as much as I can, but because this setting is so dense and I'm not nearly as deep into it as I would like to be, there's probably going to be a part 2 in the future. So if you want me to do like a dedicated factions video discussing all of the factions, their sectorials and sub-factions and units, like this video. And if there is enough praise and enough push for this, I will do a part 2 covering all of the dumb shit, including all the stuff going on Shinju, which is kind of the most modern part of the setting. Regardless, what is Infinity? Well, to start, it is a sci-fi setting taking place a couple hundred years-ish into the future. There is a lot of minor and major political discourse but it's not entirely as dystopian as other sci-fi settings. It's more of like a Orwellian thing with a positive lilt to it. For one, environmental collapse had basically desecrated the Earth. With this in mind, the first major domino to fall and the first major geopolitical blunder that shaped the setting was the launching of something known as Project Dawn. Essentially, there was this discovery of semi-stable wormholes that could transport someone theoretically from one part of the universe to another. So, in order to save their ailing world, or at least the people that were on it, North America, Russia, France, and a whole bunch of other Western nations banded together to create massive ships that would go through one of these wormholes to a planet they had named Dawn, thus the name Project Dawn. 2 ships specifically, with a bunch of accessories alongside them, the Aurora and the Ariadne. Now, you may recall a few seconds ago how I said this was a blunder, because it was. The Ariadne made it through first as kind of the scout ship, the vanguard vessel, and the majority of the supplies were going to be on the Aurora. So they had made it to Dawn, and while they were waiting for Aurora to get through the warp portal, whatever, Aurora called tails on their way through instead of heads, and whoopsie-poopsie, the wormhole closed as they were going through it. And I think it's basically stated that they are listed as incredibly super dead, but they've never been found, so knowing the quantum anomalies of this setting could make people time travel randomly, there is a chance they might show up later as just a random sub-faction of mutants, who knows. Ariadne was kinda fucked and not heard from for quite some time, but the big issue is here that trillions of dollars from multiple countries just disappeared out of thin air, and not to mention the amount of raw resources that were used up to make these gigantic ships. Project Dawn ended up bankrupting numerous different nations, sending them into a death spiral, which led to the East, namely China, to swoop in and fill the vacuum. This led to them essentially consolidating with the majority of Asia under their own banner, absorbing like Japan, Korea, and so on. Though knowing the social stigma that China had amassed as kind of imperialistic at the time, they ended up rebranding with all of these countries under a new, logo, and that is the lovable and huggable Yuqing, a nation that is 100% based around its Asian national identity with respect to the various cultures that ended up being incorporated, but kind of not really. I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, as long as you're not Japanese, you're fine. Listen, there is a faction in this game you can play called the Japanese Separatist Army, or Greater Independent Japan if you're cool, so you could probably guess they had a reason to leave, but whatever. Regardless, seeing Yuqing take over Earth caused a bunch of the other remaining nations to band together because they didn't really want to be under that kind of, banner. There is a timeline here of the names and nations, starting with a small conglomerate, but then engulfing North America, India, the Philippines, and whatever. I'm not going to go through all of it because I'm super dyslexic, and putting a list of countries, I will have to triple check it over and over and over just so that I can, get everything right. But what you need to know is that countries that didn't get absorbed into Yuqing ended up getting absorbed into this new nation, which kind of occupied the same rule system as a country, as in they, were governed by the same laws, but because they were split across various different nations and weren't landlocked, they ended up kind of rebranding to a new singular name and identity, that of Pan-Oceania, which is, the whole thing. This basically is pretty much the entire plot of Infinity. The majority of interpersonal bickering is between Yuqing and Pan-O, with Pan-O being the larger of the two, which makes Yuqing fucking angry like you wouldn't believe. Regardless, the cooperation of everybody involved on planet Earth, which I should note there is a bunch of other micronations that were on Earth at the time, including the pre-formation of the Hawk Islamites, but we'll get to Haq Islam later. This massive corporation led to such extreme advancements in tech that it basically led to a new revolution, like quantronic computers, which I'm not even going to pretend I know what that means, and a bunch of other tech that would make spaceships more easily able to go through wormholes. This led to space race that ended up being pretty prosperous for everybody. Being ready to jump into wormholes, let's skip ahead a little bit, and it is the future. Pan-Oceania holds 3 full star systems worth of planets. Yuching is trying its best to hold on to a few. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of other factions that developed, one being the Nomads, a force of individuals made up of 3 massive traveling motherships that don't really claim any specific planet as their own, just small colonies, as well as just going around and offering their services. They are a libertarian's wet dream. They wish to not be a part of any heavily governed body, so they're kind of their own thing. So the 3 motherships have their own 3 identities, with the first one being Tunguska, literally just the deep web and everything associated with it, for good or for bad. Corregidor, originally a prison ship that was given rights and sovereignty to exist of its own, so basically just Australia, but I guess mostly Mexican, to my knowledge. And Bakunin, a station where if you want anything, you can buy it there. It is a social mecca of religious freedom, social freedom, and medical freedom. And yes, it can get pretty dark. We don't talk about Praxis. It's kind of at the center. It's really bad. I'm not going to get into Praxis, but oh Jesus. The Nomads kind of have a love-hate relationship with the reigning powers that be, because they are essentially Rapture from BioShock, but decided not to close their borders entirely, because maybe having a stable trade route between different nations that have more resources than you is actually a good thing. Regardless, they work with other nations in order to keep their own privacy and personal freedoms a top priority, while also maintaining funds and relationships so that they don't end up getting blasted out of the sky. Very anti-Big Brother, but you also have something like Aleph, which is in fact the nicest version of Big Brother and the thing that they hate. Aleph is the combined super intelligence of almost all data collected in the human sphere, which is, the human sphere is the term they use to describe the entirety of the human race's holdings. This AI is its own faction, but works predominantly with Pan-Oceania and the O12. The Nomads have a hate-hate relationship with this thing, which, yeah, sure, maybe having an omnipresent sentient data amalgam that thinks it knows what's best to guide humanity into the future, and also having personal AI servants that are connected directly to it, embedded into every single person is a bad idea, but who would have thought? I mean, it seems to be working out. Maybe the Torment Nexus was a good idea, but Aleph seems pretty chill. I mean, they bring people back from the dead from time to time. Oh, fuck, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, in the future, due to the discovery of this biotechnical marvel known as Silk, people now have the ability to back up their personalities and memories in these cube things that are embedded into their body. Upon death, the cubes can be extracted, and if you are deemed worthy enough, they will revive you in a new artificially grown body. Sure, the consciousness that you were before is gone. No, you are dead. You are not going to just suddenly wake up after being dead and be brought back. No, this is literally just a recording. Also, this is so Star Trek. I love it. But basically, every one of your memories, every single one of your thoughts and the way you think is re-uploaded into this body, and your brain is remolded into this new body so that it basically feels like there's no break in consciousness. So, I don't know, it's an idea. It's cool. This has led to some oddities, like Aleph reading and combining every historical account of historical figures into an approximate personality, filling in the gaps with modern information, and then speculating on their history based off of, historical accounts, and then reviving them, making an artificial brain, filling it with all the memories that they have constructed, as well as all that information, and then making a body that approximates someone who'd be useful in today's society. And, it's led to them bringing back people that were pretty important. This includes, but is not limited to, Sun Tzu, Joan of Arc, Achilles, William Wallace, and me. Probably. I don't know. Give it enough time. Maybe. Now, Aleph is important as it is basically the guiding algorithm for this universe's internet Maya, though the Nomads kind of have their own system called Arachne, which is moderated by Tunguska, thus the whole deep web analogy I gave before. But this universe is weirdly peaceful? Sort of. Under the surface, there is a lot of terrible shit going on, and there's a lot of individuals who are almost at full-blown war most of the time. Like, if Pano reaches a planet first, but Yuching claimed it on their records, who owns it? I don't know. So I guess they should just duke it out, right? Thus the rise of something that I mentioned earlier, which is the O12. I think the logical extreme of the United Nations, essentially they are the cops in matters of border interplanetary planetary disputes and whatever else that happens. They're there to make sure that smaller sovereign nations don't get overswept by other individual larger nations just for the sake of, taking land from someone who already claimed it. We also have aliens, sentient ones no less, starting with the Helots of Varuna, who now work alongside the Pan-Oceanians, and I don't know much about the Helots. I should have read more into them, but I don't know, they look cool, I guess. Fish people, I think. Fish lizards? I don't know. Okay, so let's get into the biggest shakeup of the setting, which is the invasion of the Combined Army. Not to be reductive, but they are basically the Covenant from Halo. If they were mostly secular and also kind of Buddhist in a way, I don't know. They are ran by an AI similar to that of Aleph, but evil, the evolved intelligence. This AI was invented for the sole purpose of trying to figure out a way for individuals of the Combined Army, the hegemony, to ascend to a higher level of consciousness, basically collecting as much information as possible, finding whatever information and rituals are needed to accomplish what is basically ascending to godhood. The Combined Army is kind of the villains of the setting, but it's only slightly more complicated than that. They are made up of several different races, ranging from Battle Monkey to literally the Shrike, and after years of war, we have reached a level of understanding with them that can basically be amounted to an uneasy truce. Are we actually at peace with them at all? I mean, on paper, yeah, and there isn't really technically open war, but in reality, they're probably plotting a way to usurp all of humanity, evident from the fact that one of the newest sub-factions is known as the fucking Next Wave, which, well, are mostly humans who have taken in Combined Army technology. Now, isn't that fucking atrocious? Now, you might think we are kind of up shit creek here, advanced super aliens and robot monsters, hyper advanced aliens with super guns. But no, fortunately not. See, at a certain level, there's this kind of nexus of technology that a bullet is still a bullet is still a bullet. And also we have the Tauha, who are no longer sold, but you can still play them. They're in the app. Yeah, there's a free app you can download. It's pretty good. Infinity Army is actually a pretty solid app, but they are an alternate alien race who showed up to aid in the fight against the Combined Army, so they kind of balance the scales a little bit. But human technology has advanced to that nexus point where we kind of could just deal with whatever. Sure, we might not have teleporter and gene therapy stuff the same level that, say, the Shesvasti have, but I don't know, we can kind of deal with it. A good example is my favorite faction, the one I play. Remember Project Dawn? That thing that bankrupted several countries on Earth? Yeah. So, the Aurora was lost, but the Ariadne, no, that ship landed. And we found out the hard way that there was, in fact, Stone Age aliens on there known as antipodes, or antipodes, which that one doesn't sound right, but I don't know. They have weird mutagenic bites that turn pregnant women's babies into werewolves. They have stone hand axes for weapons, and from minute one, the humans of Ariadne were at war with wolf monsters. But fun fact, we fucking survived, dude. To the modern day, albeit we didn't advance as much on Planet Dawn technologically as everything else. Nanobots didn't really have a chance to be made in a lab, especially because running a lab is difficult with frequent werewolf attacks, but they did survive, finding their own supply of Tesium, a sci-fi super material that is both great for computers, but also has the same properties as depleted uranium when put into a bullet. So, we don't really have super fancy Mass Effect guns, but we've got depleted uranium AK-47s, so yeah, we domesticated some of the antipodes. Some people became half antipode, and when Pan-O showed up, they claimed that the ancestors of the people who originally landed on Dawn about 150 years ago were, part of their political jurisdiction. So, therefore, Planet Dawn is technically under Pan-Oceania control, to which the majority of Ariadne, in both Russian, French, and English, said something akin to, okay, come and fucking take it from us, which proved to be a difficult task because where Pan-O and the other nations had amazing tech, the Ariadnans were just masters of guerrilla warfare and were just plain old barbarians in terms of their combat skill. They would just murder the living hell out of everybody they could in whatever way they can. Whatever got results, and if you were to hear someone say Baba Yaga into their radio, you should probably either surrender or leave or take that cyanide capsule you had stored for good times, because things are about to get really messed up really fast. You may think this universe is heavily inspired by a secular way of thinking after all this. It's all rough and tumble Reddit atheists with thick thighs, nice asses, and shotguns, and honestly, no. But there is a lot of religiousness in this setting. From Pano having an entire military sect based off of the Crusade of the Knights Templar, to Bakunin being one of the nomad ships I mentioned before. One of the key elements in that was religious freedom, and there was a certain faction of neo-Catholics that arose after biological attacks on the Vatican or some shit. These individuals think that Aleph and most AI is the devil, and most of them look like very tacky versions of the nuns from that one Hitman trailer. But in terms of religiousness, there is genuinely a faction where their philosophy, religious beliefs, and practices are woven into the culture so much it's impossible to separate. Haq Islam, literally meaning New Islam, it was a movement started on Earth to spread peaceful teachings surrounding the idea of the acquisition of knowledge and information, basically seeking transcendence through understanding both spiritually, philosophically, and literally, incorporating hard science into the midst there. They simply wish to understand the universe more as they see all of God's creations as beautiful and to be understood. It's pretty cool. They eventually colonized a planet that ended up being a godsend to them in more ways than one. The main one being that there's this weird biochemical released from a plant when a certain parasite matures on it. I don't know, man. They were able to use this chemical to create something that is colloquially known as silk, a non-disruptive compound that, when placed inside of a human body, weaves its way around the majority of their systems and nervous system in order to just accomplish many different medical marvels. No, I don't know how it works. It's basically magic. So, loss of fat, removing cancer, reviving the dead, it's all a matter of preferences with the advancements in silk, which can only be produced on this planet. They've tried to recreate the conditions in other locations. The home of the Haq Islamites is kind of the only place you can really find it. So, they have a monopoly on a literal miracle chemical, thus they guard it in order to maintain their sovereignty. This leads us to the last major faction to understanding the universe a bit better, and that is the Japanese Separatist Army, or more commonly referred to as Greater Independent Japan. These are individuals who felt like they were being slighted by Yu Qing in their treatment of their culture and people, and essentially segregating Japanese citizens from the rest and treating them like second-class citizens. So there was a rebellion, and many Japanese separated into their own army, which is small, but by God do they fight like the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, carving out their own world with a core tenet of their philosophy revolving around good old-fashioned Bushido. But here is the thing. I mentioned their own world, and this is kind of a good spot to pivot. Shinju. Yeah, kind of a big staging ground right now for Infinity. See, it was a habitable world that was discovered. Now, when something like that is found out, people will fight tooth and nail for it because a full world to yourself is perfect for resources. So Pano and Yu Qing rushed to claim it as this wormhole opened up leading to a new planet. But unfortunately, the wormhole leading to it, right next to it, was a ship owned by the Japanese. So them fuckers slipped in, claimed the planet before the others, and this led to a lot of people being just straight up pissed off. Like, really, really mad. The planet got named to Shinju as the O-12 stepped in to state that technically, due to them being the first one to make contact and establish colonies on there, the JSA, and thus the main conflict for a while, is a planet owned by them. On there, it is filled with ancient alien ruins and a lot of smaller colonies that have been popping up by the other major factions, even though the JSA or GIJ are, the sole owners of it, thus its name Shinju. Now, why is this important? Because Pano and Yu Qing got slighted. Thus, they're very pissed at this. So they are going to do everything they can to push their territories legally or with the veneer of legality. Be it adjusting a signpost every day so that they have a foot more of a line than they did prior, or, whoops, I guess this camp of JSA soldiers got abandoned. We couldn't really find any of the bodies, thus we own it now. Yeah, what's that wood chipper device you got over there? Why is it red? Weird. This is what we call Cold Infinity, by the way. Not the meat wood chipper, whatever. Basically, this is close to one, where the setting actually gets its name. Code Infinity means that we are almost at complete open war, but in order to keep things from outright exploding and to maintain the peace, you have to do these small-scale, deniable skirmishes that make it so that the enemy only gets pissed at you, but can't call it as a breach of law because, it's all deniable assets. Pano is fighting JSA, that's what Operation Sandtrap was about. Yu Jing is in there too, fighting anybody who will take them on. Ariadna is somehow in there too. I guess they just really like the JSA, who would have thought? Aleph and O12 have a base of operations there to make sure things don't just explode. Even the combined army is there to take on their own part of the land for nefarious plots. Hawk Islam is there as well, and the Nomads have some shit there too. The setting of Infinity is all about staging. Here is a land of opportunity, here is a reason for everyone to fight, and here is a bunch of specialized units that work well in this area, and those are the next ones to be released. They have a bunch of different units released for desert and arid climates just because of Shinju. Like for Pano, they have a typical trooper known as a Fusilier. This is your sword and board, normal guy, not your high end, not your low end, this is your grunt. But if you are going on Shinju, or if you want to, you can actually run something called a Fennec Fusilier, which is the same thing, but they're better for desert and turbulent climates, and I think that's really cool. Don't even get me started about the hyper-advanced war machines. Tags are awesome. Tactical armored gears have replaced tanks for the majority of what would be considered heavy combat weapons, and it's for a reason. They can maneuver better in any area in the world, from the hills to mountains to rocky terrain to zero-G. They even have specialized tags for specific locations, like the Pan-Oceanian Cutter, who is meant for aquatic endeavors, used heavily on Varuna as it's an aquatic planet. Now, I will state, I literally couldn't find the rules for how to fight in water, but apparently this one ignores all penalties, so there has to be something somewhere. But this is just a glimpse at the setting of Infinity. When not at war, the people of the human sphere prosper. It is a utopian society across this universe, but it is on the verge of collapse due to how people work. Aliens, monsters, megabeasts, and rival factions always work to get a leg up without causing the entire structure to collapse. It's literally just a house of cards. Either they do it for the sake of a perceived greater good or simply to improve their own stations. Greed still exists. Imperfect people still exist, but that makes the setting special. It is just so dense with material. There is so much meat on these bones that I feel the anime aesthetic doesn't do it justice. I feel like if you did something with this level of complexity and did it more like a Shadowrun realism style of art, then I feel like it'd be more transparent about its depth. But if I'm being even further honest, if I could hand wave it and have it be completely changed, I wouldn't change a thing. The identity of this game is so unique, it actually boggles my mind. This game is insane and fun and super complicated, but that might just be me and my tiny brain. What do you guys all think? Do you like Infinity, or do you simply see it as a bit too all over the place? Let me know in the comments what you think. Also, shout out to this YouTube channel by the name of Warlore. The dude's a goddamn Chad and a scholar. His videos have helped me collect my thoughts in between book readings for this video for quite some time now. And if you guys don't like this video, but some of you want to know more about the setting, his entire channel is so great for just Infinity. But also, he did a video on Blackout, which is kind of nice because I like Blackout. He's also very well spoken too. So yeah, special thanks to my channel members. With your support and help, I can do non-40k videos like this and still exist in the sphere and not worry about my channel collapsing inwards on itself. So thank you. If you want bonus videos each month, then consider becoming a channel member. Thank you all once again for watching. And before I go, I just want to bitch. The Blackjack is a part of a US Ariadna sub-factorial, which is no longer being sold. Thus, I cannot collect enough US Ariadna to play them as a full-sized warband unless I break the bank or just buy singular grunts, which I do not want. My life is abject misery.